3 different ways to make your analytics code more type safe using TypeScript. So what is analytics code? Well, analytics code are the little fragments of code that are normally littered all throughout a code base that send off events based on user interaction. Things like clicking add to cart or viewing a product or clicking checkout. Those are sent to systems like Omniture, Segment, or Google Analytics, and then compiled into reports so that business folks can say, oh, well, if they look at this image A, then they convert more than if they look at image B, and therefore we're going to show image A, that kind of stuff. That's all powered by analytics. A close cousin of analytics code is instrumentation code. And the only real difference is the type of events we send, the payloads, and the target audience. But the basic mechanics are largely the same, so you'll get value out of this video if you're also looking to improve your instrumentation code. Now, instrumentation code, the audience is us, and the events are things like how fast did a server respond, or how fast did this algorithm take to run, that kind of stuff. Now, the reason I'm doing this video is that a lot of this code is often written kind of as an afterthought and kind of haphazardly. And the result is inconsistent results, inconsistent naming of events, missing properties, all that kind of stuff. And we could do so much better, and we can do it really easily using TypeScript. So that's what we're going to do today on this video. Now, before we get into that, I just want to let you know how you can help support this channel. And one of the things that you can do is hit like or hit subscribe. You can certainly help us out by leaving a comment down below to say that this video worked for you or ask any questions you might have. So feel free to do that. I encourage you to do that. And of course, you can jump on the Discord server, which is linked to in the description. And if you really like us, you can buy us a coffee, which is also linked to in the description. All right, let's go jump into the code and see how we're going to make our analytics code better using TypeScript. Okay, so here's our example application. It's got 3 buttons and it generates 3 different events. So I'm going to click view item and add to cart. Now, how do I know that this is actually doing anything? Well, this actually sits on top of this analytics library here. And the great thing about this particular analytics library is that it integrates with Redux DevTools if you turn on the debug flag. So let's go have a check out of that. If I go over here to the Redux DevTools in the inspector, I can see that these track messages went out. So we have a track message for view product. When I clicked on that view item, we've got to click a message for add to cart when I clicked on that. And it gives you all the different properties and that kind of stuff. So this is how we know that we are sending out events. So very cool. All right, let's go take a look at the code and see just how bad it is. So this is a Create React app. It's got most of the contents pulled out. It's got this UI with a bad API down there. We can get rid of our console. We don't need that anymore. And let's take a look at our bad UI. Well, our bad UI pulls in our analytics library from analytics bad. And then it's got 3 different callbacks, one for track, one for add to cart, and one for view product. And then they just go on the on-click handlers. So we're just going to see how we can make this better. So a couple of reasons, first off, why I sort of look at this and think, oh, this is not great code. So first off, it's repeating itself. And there's a big principle in software engineering, and that's dry, don't repeat yourself, right? And then we are repeating ourselves kind of over and over here by calling out this analytics track over and over again. The second thing that worries me is that this is actually just a thin wrapper around the library itself. Let's go over and take a look at analytics bad. So the only thing this is doing is going and just getting the analytics library, creating a new instance, giving it the app name, and then saying that we want a debug, which is connecting us to Redux DevTools and exporting it. So really, there's no wrapper around this at all. We're just basically returning the instance and then hitting track a bunch of times on it, which is not great. So what we're going to do is we are first going to refactor this into a single function. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this bad code. We'll do this a couple of different times, so you'll have your own copies of this to try it out. So we'll call this UI with overloads, because our first take on this is going to be using TypeScript overloading. So let's go overloads like that. That doesn't exist yet. And then we will go and copy this analytics bad and create a new one called analytics overloads. And so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to create a function that's going to wrap track event. So instead of exporting analytics, we're going to export a function, call it track event. And it's going to take a event name, which is a string, and it's going to take a set of properties, props. And to define that, we're actually going to use a Typescript utility function. So in this case, the utility function is the record function. And record just allows you to say that I have a type, in this case like a string, well, in this case like a cat name really, and then we have a value or a value type. So in this case, let's go and check out our React app, and we'll do record, and we know that our key is going to be a string, and our whatever that connects to, that value is going to be a type of any, this is a terrible interface, right? So there we go. And then with that, we're going to go do track and then give it that event name and then the props. Okay, let's go over to our UI with overload. And now we have not that, we've got track event. Okay, so that's somewhat better. Let me get rid of these. The issue here is that if I go and change, this to something, it doesn't care, right? It's like, okay, great, that must be a new event name, awesome. But we know that that's not right. That is not that event name. The event name is checkout. So we need to go and create multiple versions of this function that will map to those, right? So let's go over here to interfaces, and I've gone ahead and picked out the different interfaces just to help us along. So in this case, the view product takes a product and refer. So the way that you do a functional overload is you just keep on defining functions, but you don't actually define implementation. So let's just say that our export of a function in this case, again, track event, same name, is with the event name checkout, and the props are going to be a checkout event props, like that. And we do the same thing for all of these. So let's see, add to cart, and then view product. All right, and then down here, I'm going to set that to that. And I'm also going to say that this returns a void. Get rid of those issues. Perfect. Okay. So this is how function overloading works in TypeScript. You basically give it a bunch of different signatures of your function, and then the final one is the actual implementation, and that implementation should be able to handle any of the incoming signatures. Now, there's some documentation on this over here, more on functions, or more on functions if you like, if you're not 5 years old. And then let's take a look down here. So functional overloads, there you go. And so here's some documentation, and you can see that, for example, like we've got make date can take a number of different signatures, but the actual one at the end can handle any of those signatures. Now let's go see if this actually helps us out. So is this going to help us with making this a better system? So if I change checkout to something else, I'm now flagged. Okay, so there's no overload that matches this call. So if I change checkout, either adding underscores or making it camel case, it's going to not like that. So then if I go and I change out the parameters, so new param, is that going to be an issue? Yep, that's also an issue because that doesn't know about new param G there. So now we have a type-safe interface for our analytics. Let's go bring it in and see if it actually works. So I'm going to go and bring over here our overloads. I'll call this UI with overloads. And then bring it into our app. All right, so it looks like it's on the page. That's cool. Let's go over to our inspector, bring up our Redux DevTools, and make sure that we're in our React app. And let's see. There we go. Some tracks. Excellent. Looking good. Okay, so that's one variant. Now I'm going to show you a slightly different variant on this. This is not going to be a totally different thing. So I kind of want to consider this still as one. So I'm going to go and create an analytics overloads. And in this case, I'm going to use enums for the different event names. So in this case, I'm going to make an enum. We'll call it event name. I'm going to export it. And then we'll have checkout. Add to cart. And view product. In this case, we can make that checkout, add to cart, and view product. And then down here, we're going to say that this should be one of the enums. So functionally, pretty much exactly the same thing. So let's go back over here with UI with overloads. I'm going to copy that and see how we use it. UI with overloads and enums. And we need to bring in our event name as well. Checkout and add to cart and view product. Okay, and we'll say this and enums, and I'll just go and add it to the page, and then we'll go take a look at why I think that's better. Okay, looking good, and it tracks, everything looks great, great. Okay, so let's go and take a look. So the reason I think this is a little bit better is that you're getting some better checking. Like, you know, so if I hit on event name and then do dot, I actually get hinted as to what my potential values are. And then, so it's pretty easy to write one of these. So if I say track event, event name, checkout, and then I start doing this, now I actually get hinted on what the different properties are. And that's actually really nice. So I think that that's actually pretty cool. And I'm just really not a huge fan of string literals as part of the code. I think it's a little bit cleaner to do this, and it's easier to actually regex for if you're going and searching through the entire code base. Okay, so now that we have one variant of this done, I want to look at a different variant, different style, and I'm going to call this one an event map. And so it's using kind of a different feature and functionality of Typescript. And the reason that I'm presenting three here is that I want you to be able to decide for yourself which one has the right API signature and the right style for you and your application. So let's go and I'm going to take this one as an example starting point, and we'll call this UI with an event map. All right, and I'm going to go back to the string style on this one. Now let's go grab our analytics enums and create analytics event map. Okay, so in this one, we're going to create a new event map. So we're going to export an interface. And it's going to say checkout. We'll call this event map. And it's going to have checkout be the props. And then we'll have add to cart. And we'll have add to cart props. And finally, we'll have view product and view product props. And we can get rid of our event name over here. Okay, so now we're just going to go back down to a single function here. But we're going to make it a generic function. And we're going to have a key, and that key extends a key of that event map. And I'll put it in there. So the event name has to be one of these three: checkout, add to cart, or view product. And then the properties are going to be event map for that property, for that key. And that's all it takes. So let's go take a look. Let's go close a bunch of these that I don't need. Kind of concentrate on what we're looking at. So let's take a look. Event map over here, right? Okay, so this is working right away, which is actually really, really cool. So if I do this, right, it's telling me the option there is checkout. If I put in a null string, it'll show me that based on the fact that there are three keys within the event map, it's going to show me those three values. And the only properties that I can put in here are the ones, oops, see, I messed that up, right? So there you go, add to cart. Now add to cart matches that. So we automatically do our test. Let's go and add in a checkout there that's not the same thing. Yep, that's a problem. That doesn't work. Cool. And let's go and add a property that doesn't exist. Okay, and that's a problem too because the checkout doesn't have that property. And there you go. So cool. All right, let's actually try this out. So we'll call this UI with event map. Bring it over into our app TSX. All right, let's go check it out in our UI. Here we go, UI with event map. Awesome, sends out those track messages. Perfect. Great. Okay, awesome. So it works and it's type safe. So you get all of that in one go. Now we have two different methods. We've got our functional overloading version and we've got our event map version. Now, when I was playing with Effector a couple weeks ago, I really fell in love with this idea of creating event emitter functions. So we're going to create another one called, and this is going to be our third variant. We're going to make one called funcs, and this is going to create special functions that we use to send off events for each one. So this time I'll start over here with our event map as just an example. So analytics funcs. So the first thing we're going to do is create a function called create analytics sender. And it's going to take a name, and it's going to return another function. And that function is going to take a set of properties, just like we have in the past, defined by type T. So we're going to make this a generic function. So we get to define what those properties should look like in the returned function. Now this, in JavaScript parlance, is actually a closure. So we're going to grab, at this point, the value of name. So when I create this function, that function is going to have that name then kind of frosted in that closure. So we don't have to send that again, right? The function that we send to our downstream clients is just going to take that property. And then we'll send along the props, and away we go. So now we just want to go and create a couple of instances of this. So we're going to export a checkout event, which is going to be this create analytics sender of type checkout event props. And we're going to instantiate that with the name checkout. So what's happening here is on the startup of the application, we are running this create analytics sender with this checkout event props and this name checkout. That's going over here, and it then is returning us a function, and that's what is the actual value of checkout event, is this function that takes these properties and then does that analytics track. So we'll do the same thing for view product. And also for add to cart. All right, pretty cool. Let's go actually use this thing. So let's go create our UI. And now we get to bring in these different functions. So we'll call this one analytics funcs. And let's see what we get back. Add to cart, checkout event, and view product event. And so for all of we want to do the add to cart, we just grab that and do add to cart. But this time we can leave off that string. Yay! And it's fully type safe. So if I go and add a new value in here, it doesn't like that new value because that's not as part of the add to cart event type, which is what we specified when we created the add to cart event sender. So let's go over here to checkout, do the same thing for that. And then, of course, view product. There we go. And now we don't have to worry about whether the names are valid or not. Those are automatically coded in there for us. The only thing that has to be type safe at this point is the event type. And again, absolutely checked for us. So that's really cool, very type safe. And let's actually try this out. So we'll call this UI with funcs. Bring it over here in our app. And then finally use it. Okay, here we go. One last one. Boom. Yep, perfect. So I hit view item, and we get our view product. Looking good. All right, so there we go. 3 different ways of doing type-safe analytics using TypeScript, but with a little tweak in there, which really makes it 4. So you get to pick for your particular application which is the right style for either your analytics or for your instrumentation or for both. Okay, so I've given you a couple of different options for what you might do when it comes to analytics and how to be type safe using TypeScript. If you have any more ideas around this particular use of TypeScript or other areas in the industry where you'd like to see this kind of thing done, be sure to let me know. Maybe database adapters is something we can have a look at in the next couple episodes. I'm really excited about it. So if you have any more comments or questions, be sure to put those in the comments section down below. Otherwise, I'll see you next week. And of course, be happy, be healthy, and be safe.